Hey guys, Level Cap here, and the Battlefield 1 trailer has been revealed, and it looks amazing. Absolutely mind-blowing. The visuals are over the top. We now know it is a World War I game. And I'd like to make a video talking more about what that means for the Battlefield franchise, but first, I wanted to break down the trailer. There's a huge amount of information there, both in the trailer, at the press event that I was at, there was more off-screen footage that we were able to see there. I took tons of notes, jotted down some information that is not available in the actual trailer, and I'll be giving all of that to you guys in this video. Let's begin at the start, and right off the bat, we have a huge amount of information in this single freeze frame here. If you watched the live stream, then you already know that there's mustard gas and gas masks in the game. As you can see, the players here are wearing the gas mask, and there's going to be a variety of melee weapons. You can see this player here has a spiked mace, which looks absolutely terrifying and brutal. Now the soldier who's about to get hit in the face has an interesting device on his back. This is the stick grenade. It's basically an improvised anti-tank grenade. It's 6 grenades bundled together to create a bigger explosion to take out tanks. Here we have a freeze frame of a huge wide open desert area, and as indicated that this is all in-game footage, I can only assume that this is a map in multiplayer and that we're going to be seeing some massive scale. Now this next freeze frame up here is a very interesting one because I believe this is an Arab warrior who fought potentially with Lawrence of Arabia. Why would I be saying this? Well, if you go to the Battlefield website and look at the pre-order bonuses for the deluxe edition, there's a Lawrence of Arabia pack that's going to include like weapons and stuff like that. So clearly there is going to be some influence there. Also, this warrior looks like a woman. Some food for thought there. This next freeze frame here shows a twin-seat British airplane flying over a massive battle that looks like it could have been the same battle from the very first clip with the guy with the mace. Looks like there's some muddy trenches down below, aerial combat, and we can see quite a few what's called barrage balloons, and these look like mini blimps basically. They send them up in the air with cables attached to them, and not only do they create obstacles for aircraft, but if you fly beneath them, your wings will hit the cables and they'll basically cut off a wing of the aircraft. I don't know if it does this in game, but that's what they're designed for in real life. Next, we have a freeze frame of what looks like the ground level of the same battle. Quite a lot of hand-to-hand infantry combat going on here. We're going to see the shovel being used to melee somebody in the face. And if you look closely, you have in the bottom right corner what I think is the MG08. It's pretty dark and hard to tell, but there aren't a lot of other guns that match this same profile. Now, aside from this aerial combat just looking amazing in general, they're flying through a canyon on a deserty looking map. It could be one of the maps we saw before. It could be a new one. The red aircraft here appears to be the Fokker DR-1, also known as the triplane. Yes, I said Fokker. Don't laugh, guys. You're going to be saying it a lot once this game releases. It's also worth noting that this is the Red Baron's airplane, and there's actually a Red Baron pack available in one of the versions of Battlefield. This clip just shows some awesome looking destruction. Hopefully we can expect that kind of level of destruction in multiplayer. This clip actually shows somebody, I believe, controlling the steering of a tank. I'm not 100% on that, but I do know that the controls for tanks were incredibly complicated. And this is actually the Mark IV tank, one of the most popular tanks in World War I. Very iconic, very cool tank. Can't wait to try this out. Next to the tank, we have a soldier carrying an incredibly cool weapon that I just learned about. This is the Mauser 1918 Tiguer. I probably totally mispronounced that, but it is an anti-tank rifle. It shot a 13.2 millimeter cartridge, and I imagine it kicked like a mule. This next image here is just awesome. I mean, how often do you expect to see horses and airplanes in the same battle? Well, apparently in Battlefield 1, it could be a common occurrence. The next freeze frame is of a very cool angle using the Lewis gun. This has got that cool disc style magazine on top. We did see this back at the beginning of the trailer, also mounted in an aircraft. This was a very versatile weapon used in many situations. We also get our first look at the mustard gas and then subsequently putting on the gas mask. This next freeze frame here is insane. I mean, there was armor in World War I. They were messing around with some pretty thick steel-plated armor in the actual war that would stop bullets This is like just full-on knight with a machine gun. It looks awesome. I couldn't find any references online to this specific type of armor. I'm not sure if it's actually real. It probably is. I know DICE researched the heck out of this game. I don't know what it is, but it looks awesome and I want it. These poor guys here seem to be getting mowed down in the Italian Alps. They mentioned that that was one of the locations in the game. It looks absolutely gorgeous. The next clip again shows it off in stunning glory from up above with this massive aerial battle. If you look closely, you can see a lot of stone buildings down below. I'm very curious to see just how destructible they are. They mentioned that the destruction is awesome, but that they also might have had to tone it back a bit just to make sure that people weren't able to destroy entire maps. Then, of course, we have to show the trenches. Sure enough, there was trench warfare in World War I. In fact, it's probably what everybody was thinking of when you thought about a World War I battlefield game. I think this has kind of taken everybody by surprise in that there's so much non-trench combat going on here. It just looks amazing and not kind of the stalemate that I think everybody would expect a World War I game to be. And, oh yeah, flamethrowers, World War I weapon. That's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see how the flame physics and flame dynamics work in this game. Here's just an image of what that sort of backpack looks like. Can't wait to pick this up in the battlefield. Oh yeah, and armored trains with cannons on them. This thing is going to be awesome. This specific one here, known as the Orlik, has these two cannons on top of it, and then they could also be pulling anti-aircraft cannons, artillery cannons, you name it. It could pull any sort of arsenal behind it. So I cannot wait to see what train combat is like and the fact that it's part of this game. And then of course we have the Dreadnought, these steel behemoths with massive cannons on them. This was kind of the precursor to the World War II battleship. These things were huge and had just massive destructive power. Also, naval combat in a World War I game, I don't think too many people saw that coming, so that is a very nice surprise. The next clip I want to play in slow-mo on repeat for a little bit so we can try and notice aerial physics here. The plane that takes the hit in the beginning of this clip does not appear to be exploded or destroyed immediately. Instead, it looks like it's been damaged, and the flight of it looks like it's been affected from being damaged. Now this could easily be a glorified death animation that aerial vehicles have, or it could be that physically damaging aircraft is going to affect their flight trajectory. Maybe they have multiple damage states. Would be very, very cool. I'm remaining hopeful for that, but then again it could just be an awesome death animation. Then of course we have to have the artillery cannons. World War I wouldn't be World War I with tons and tons of artillery bombardment. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the game. Is it going to be a commander attack? Will players control the artillery? We'll have to wait and see. Then this next frame here I had to freeze because it just looks awesome. Look at that freaking explosion graphic. I hope that's what explosions look like in multiplayer because it's going to be amazing. We also have a bolt action rifle here in the foreground with a side mounted scope to reduce your profile. Basically, when sticking your head over a trench, you don't want to put your head any higher than it has to be, so side mounted scopes were popular. Don't know what kind of rifle this is, but I'm sure someone can figure it out. And then of course the finale, we have the Airship, not to be confused with Zeppelin. Apparently, as I was researching this to try and figure out what kind of airship this was, found out it's not in fact a Zeppelin, and that Zeppelin was a type of airship designed by a guy named Zeppelin. Now believe it or not, Germany actually flew these things on combat missions in World War I. Totally insane. They were not that effective. It was more like a shock and awe type thing. They did drop bombs from them, and they look incredible. I can't wait to see what this is like in game. It'll be truly amazing. I was reading up on a few of them, and that the Brits were actually using incendiary ammo to take them down, which is kind of terrifying. I don't think the crew really ever survived these things going down either. Not too many soft landings. Now, what role these things play in Battlefield 1, I'm not sure. Are they trying to bring back or replicate a Titan mode? I'm not sure either, but I'm happy that they're in the game and they look awesome. Now that may be the end of the trailer, but certainly not the end of the information that we have on Battlefield 1. There was a press show at this event here. We saw some extra footage that was not part of the trailer. It all looked amazing. I took down notes and I can tell you about it now. Also, in case you're wondering what kind of weapon the guy in the key art has, he's got the MP18 submachine gun. This thing looks awesome. Look at that drum mag off to the side. Can't wait to use that in game. And then his handgun is the Mauser C96. This is actually, I believe, the handgun that was used to replicate Han Solo's DL-44. All right, let's talk about the press show. There was a lot of first-person gameplay there, which is something that we don't see as much of in the trailer. The graphics look stellar. They look just as good as the trailer graphics. So first-person visual eye candy is just top-notch, right up there. They showed a lot of desert combat in it, which looked very cool. There was some armored jeeps. I tried to look them up online. There's like 100 different kind of armored jeeps in World War I. They all look kind of goofy. One looked like it might have a small turret on top of it. There was a few other tanks that I want to talk about now that I was able to identify from the gameplay. This guy made an appearance. He's known as the A7V Sturmpanzerwagen or something like that. I'm not going to try and pronounce that again. We'll just call him the A7V. It's basically a box with treads, kind of a goofy looking tank, but unmistakable. Then I saw this guy. This is the French Renault FT. This is a light tank, also a revolutionary design as it contained all of its armaments in the top rotating turret, and it essentially paved the way for all modern tank design. Now, there was a brief clip showing somebody firing down from high up in the air with a machine gun. It could have been from an aircraft, but there was an interesting metal shield next to the weapon, and I just have a feeling, I think based on the metal, the structure around the weapon, it looked like it might have been mounted on the airship. There is also a clip of somebody throwing dynamite as you would throw C4 in a current Battlefield game, and then they pressed in a little rotating detonator that was handheld to set it off. So essentially C4 is in the game. They did mention in the live stream that there's going to be multiple melee weapons that allowed for different kinds of melee attacks, including a bayonet charge. I did see that in the footage. It looked amazing. There was also a graphic that showed off soldiers holding multiple kinds of melee weapons. There was the spike mace. Another soldier seemed to be carrying a very large knife in the background. One even seemed like they might have some sort of spear weapon. Again, a lot of this was sort of silhouetted in the background. I was trying to write it down as neat as possible, but that's as close as I can get. It looked like some dude actually had a spear. Not only did there appear to be some stationary mounted machine guns, like some water-cooled machine guns. There's several different types of those in World War I. I wasn't able to pinpoint exactly which one it was, but probably one of the more popular ones. There also looked like there was a dual mounted machine gun, water-cooled machine gun, in a stationary emplacement intended to shoot at aircraft coming by, so it seemed like there were anti-air emplacements that were essentially just machine guns. There's a little bit more horseback riding footage, and one of the guys on the horse actually had a pistol in his hand, so it implies that I assume you can shoot off of the back of a horse, which is pretty cool. There's a few more graphics of that cool looking forest map that we saw in the trailer, and one of them showed a train track going right through the middle of the forest. And now that we know that there's armored trains in the game, it leads me to believe that there's going to be an armored train in a forest map, which sounds amazing. There was some shotgun gameplay, one that showed a guy just like blowing through a wooden door with the shotgun. The door splintered as he shot through it, entered a room and blew some guy away. I couldn't make out what kind of shotgun it was, some old school pump action thing. It looked very cool. There was also footage of twin propeller bombers in the game. So I think the trailer only showed single prop airplanes. There are twin prop airplanes, bigger airplanes that were dropping bombs. There's a few quick clips of extremely large aerial battles. If I had to guess, I'd say at least 10 planes in the air at once, maybe more. So that's pretty cool, especially considering that World War I did have some of the biggest and most intense aerial battles in history. There's a little bit more footage with the gas mask on while running around with the gas mask on. It seemed to not only obstruct your vision pretty substantially, like your peripheral vision, but also the sound of the game changed entirely once the mask was on. So I imagine you're not going to be able to hear very well. So obviously there's not going to be a reason to run around with the mask on all the time, but if you see that mustard gas, you pop it on. The developers talked about how there's going to be a big focus on close quarter combat for a lot of the game, since many of the weapons were only really effective in close quarters. I saw some SMGs. The first SMGs ever were invented in World War I. I believe I saw one of these two guns here, or maybe both of them. It had a top-loading magazine. It was small, very cool looking. This is a Beretta weapon. I also also saw a gun that fed the magazine or the clip through sideways, which was a really cool looking effect. It might have been this weapon here, which is the Hotchkiss model 1909. There was definitely a clip of somebody reviving another player with a syringe, so basically the defibrillator mechanic is in the game. They also kind of mentioned something about a dedicated driver class, so I'm not sure how the class system in the game is going to work, but it seems like it could be a thing where you pick a class and then spawn directly into the vehicle. They didn't explain all the details of how it works, but it's going to be different, that's for sure. There's a bunch of cool concept art that was shown. I imagine it will probably represent some of the maps we're going to see that haven't been shown yet. One of them looked like some sort of D-Day style map. There's people coming up on a beach from boats. There's guys getting mowed down on the beaches. I'm not really sure what battle that might have been, but any historian out there may have a pretty good idea. There was imagery showing horses riding next to a train in the desert. Maybe you'll be able to board a train via a horse. I mean, it looked just like that kind of thing. There was a clip of a horse riding towards a tank, so there's going to be like horse versus tank combat in the game, which is totally crazy. And then they spoke about single player also, and it sounded like it was going to be pretty different from any other Battlefield game in the sense where they're going to follow different characters throughout the war, so you're going to get different stories and different theaters of war. And it seemed like they also want to focus on everything that makes Battlefield, so it won't just be an infantry-based single player. It sounds like they're going to mix vehicles into it as well. And then on the tail end of the live stream, in case you missed it, they did talk about how you're going to be able to get an entire squad into a tank. So it sounds like tanks are going to be much more of a team-oriented vehicle, as they were in World War I. There was a lot of people in a single tank, and it required that many people to make it functional and work properly. So it sounds like infantry versus armor dynamics are going to switch up quite a bit. Anyway, I've come to the end of my list of things that I've seen in the press show. I really want to talk more about Battlefield. It's like crazy early in the morning in London here. My voice is kind of shot, so I'm gonna render this bad boy and get it up to you guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there's any weapons or cool stuff that you spotted in the trailer that I might have missed. I'll add it to the video description so we can kind of keep this a complete list of information about what we know about Battlefield 1 so far. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.